Kevin's just on the way with the newest addition to the pond, and I'm pretty excited to be adding it. It's been about 4 weeks since we put the fish in, but I've been a little bit behind on my editing. So I do want to give you guys a big, massive, huge pond update. And I want to address some more of our problems. We got some algae, we've got some predators, we got to fix our oxygenation issues, and find out how we're going to keep on top of all of our things. And we got some drama going too, because I picked apart some of the comments that you guys left me. I know I'm not supposed to read the negative ones, but I did. But I'm going to address them. I'm going to address the negativity so that way we can get it out of the way. So there's going to be a little bit of drama involved in this episode as well.
You gotta splash from the other side, just ever so gently on the other side, it'll float over.
It's not laying Lois or loose Lois or Clark's Bend, so that's good news. Actually, looking at the dorsal fin, I noticed this is the fish. There was a fish, certain fish, when you throw them in your pond, they become uncomfortable. They don't like the new environment, they don't habituate to it. So this is the fish with the weird dorsal fin. It was swimming around and around and around and around. And I've noticed from having a pond and trout that if you have a fish that's unsettled, it just doesn't like its surroundings. And it just keeps doing really weird things. It's almost like it's cruising the shoreline to find an exit. It just doesn't like where it's at. So I think this is the fish. We had Clark Spent, the original Clark Spent, do the same thing. He never fed, he kept swimming around. I threw feed at this fish too, and this fish didn't eat either, it just completely ignored it. So I think this is one of the fish that was just not happy. Oh, I just got a whiff of it bad. So I want to give you guys a quick update on loose Lois. I came out to check. We had 1.5 inches of rain overnight, and the majority of the fish, they're doing really good. They're kind of swimming up on the surface. I noticed a lot of them were quite hungry, so they're feeding. But Lois, it's kind of make it or break it for Lois right now. She has found a nice comfortable spot, and she does circles around, and then it comes back and rests again. And she's not really totally responding to danger. Like if I can go pretty close to her and she doesn't react, so that's not a good sign. She came from a highly oxygenated environment, but when you get a 15-pound fish and she has to work a little bit harder for the oxygen, it's tough. So I want to show you, if you see her right there, we'll see if she reacts. We don't want to startle her too much. I know she hasn't fed yet. I've tried to throw some feed down and she hasn't grabbed it. There's actually food right in front of her face right now. But she's getting, a little too comfortable for comfort. Like I should not be able to get that close. I will say that her color is getting better. She's darkening up a little bit. I looked at the video when we put her in. When she catches her breath, I think she's going to go do another spin around. You watch. But she's been catching her breath here. She's got to find a nice little spot. She might just keel over. I don't know. I hope not. But I noticed as soon as we put her in the pond, she immediately changed colors. So it wasn't like it took a couple of hours. It was like almost immediate. So I wonder if there's something to that. You could see some of the other fish there swimming by. They're darker in color. But the other day she was much, much, much lighter. In fact, like she had no pink at all at the bottom. So I'm hoping she's turning the corner right now and she's adjusting. But it's hard to say. I've got Kevin, monitoring the situation and make sure that she's healthy. There's not a whole lot that we can do with her. But we don't want her to go to waste. So, at the end of the day, she's going to be food. So you can see like this is a good early sign that a fish is stressed out when they start parking themselves and they're not really responding to danger. My intention's not really to stress her out at all. It's more just to collect some information and some intelligence. The other fish are moving around pretty good pace. And like I said, she kind of does a little donut and then she comes back in her little resting spot. So there we go. That was a good little kick there. I think that was reacting to me. So we're not going to bother her anymore. I think that's Clark Spent right there. That is another massive fish. So Clark Spent's got like a humpy black spot on his head, and he's got different colors. And some of these other fish are looking pretty good. The colors have returned to normal, I would say. So I would say that's a good indication that your fish are kind of a little bit stressed out, is if they change to a lighter color. We like that typical rainbow trout color. And we got a lot of rain, so it's silted up a little bit, but not to the point where I'm concerned or worried. That'll settle down. That's pretty normal just from getting the runoff. And once everything greens up in here, less of that's gonna end up in the pond. We got a pretty good crop going, the perennial Bass Pro Shops. It's overseed. It was a food plot kind of thing, but we just use it as overseed to kind of repair this back end, and it's coming in really thick and really lush. And a lot of you guys made comments about adding water plants, so I do want to address that a little bit. We didn't want to put like lily pads in here because what can happen is it can end up choking out the whole system. Lily pads may end up still getting into the system, but we don't necessarily want to encourage that. Somebody suggested we could do some floating lily pads, but if any little portion of that root gets down to the bottom, it's going to spread and it's going to choke it all out, and then we won't be able to fish in it. But you will notice here something interesting happening. Oh, besides the fact that there's like a whole bunch of little tiny tadpoles forming in here, is that you know, nature will pretty much do what it needs to do. So we've got a little bit of a shallow area here. This is where the heron was doing a lot of fishing. I've got something for the heron. Actually, I'll introduce a little bit later. But you can see there's some cattails growing here. And that's just from the simple fact that there's cattails around here, and the fluff will travel a long distance, and basically it's planted itself here. I actually see quite a bit of water plants. So what's going to happen, because we've made it so that it's really super deep, these plants that are fixed here won't travel off into the middle and then choke it all out. So we are going to put in sort of a river system. That's going to come as far as Koenders. You see the windmill here on a calm day isn't doing a ton of work, but we've always got our backup system here, which is obviously the solar panel. This thing is pumping a ton of air, probably more air than what we need. So we have a water pump, but we're not going to get that today.
Morning. Guys, bring a rake? I need a hand.
So Kevin said, what negativity? Well, Courtney said I didn't edit one of my videos properly, so I didn't show myself in the best light.
Oh. What?
I wasn't having a good day. Well, I mean, it wasn't a bad day, but anyway, Courtney's like, I read the comments and you say you edit your videos so that you put people in the best light, but you didn't do that for yourself. I'm like, I don't really care if people want to leave me good comments or bad comments. I like, you know, as long as they're real. But they weren't. They didn't really understand the backstory. So there was your video when I couldn't see like the vision of the man shed. And so I was just like, well, I don't see the vision, but apparently Kevin's people get really upset if I can't see his vision. I'm like, well, that's the point. He has his own channel and he has his vision. And then I have my channel and I have my own vision.
Half the time I don't know what the heck you're cooking.
You don't know what I'm cooking,
no.
Right? And I don't know what he's cooking.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I have this idea. And I'm like, well, what does it look like? And he's like, well, it's all in my head. I'm like, that's great, but I don't see what's in your head. I mean, you can explain it a million times. Draw me a picture. Maybe I'll get it.
The thing is Don has no idea either.
Don doesn't either, but he's happy-go-lucky. He's just happy to be out there.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, well, I kind of want to see where this is going so I can find out if I'm getting excited or not. But this is to wrap it back into the negative pond comments, because there's some negative pond comments.
Really?
Yeah, I got them.
Awesome.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was doing a lot better than it was before. But I'll get into that. Maybe you'll want to sit around and we can read through some of the comments at the end of the video.
Did you print them off?
I've got them.
Nice.
Yeah, I cookied them out, and so they're ready to go. But we don't want to get too far into drama just yet, because we want to keep progressing forward and adding positivity to the environment. So we got to introduce our sponsor, which is Koenders, Nature's Pond Care, and we got a brand new aeration system. This is going to make it so it runs 24 hours a day. So you're going to wonder how we're going to do that off grid, but we've got to figure it out.
You can see how small it is. It's like a loaf of bread, actually. It feels like a turtle. It kind of looks like a turtle. You know how easy this thing is to hook in? You thread that thing in and you just push, that's it. And it blows air, then you gotta put the stone on. But that's it. I already played with it a little bit, and I was like, that's it? That's all there is to it? And then it's got this little push fitting, and you can disconnect it. But yeah, depending on how long you want to go. Easy. Really easy.
So here's a little hint on how this is going to work. We got a ton of piping, and look at this little tiny thing here. This is the latest Koenders Nature's Pond Care product. We're going to get that fished out, and I want to show you just what this thing is all about. Yeah, maybe. I only got one hand. Kevin can grab it. It's not heavy. It's about the size of a shoebox.
Well, but what's crazy about it is it's really quiet too, because it's so heavy. Like it's like a cast aluminum.
It looks heavy. heavy duty, right? So right here is the LD 1.5. That's at naturespondcare.com. It's a Koenders product. They have a couple of different ones. You can get this one. This is the smallest one. This is obviously going to produce the least amount of oxygen, but it's still going to be comparable to the unit we already have, which produces a ton of oxygen. So we've got the 250 and the 450. Obviously, the 450 is about the same size as the unit we already brought in, but it's solar. It's not solar, so it's going to have like a ton of juice.
Well, this
so
one,
that one pumps that no more than 8 feet deep. The other ones that you can get, the 250, 450, they're more money, but they'll pump up to 30 feet deep.
that's crazy.
So it's a ton. So he said we don't need any more than this because the pond's not bigger than 50 by 50 feet.
I think it's all about like, what's that? Air column.
Yeah, it's how much how low you can pump, right?
Air
'Cause
pressure.
The more,
pressure.
the deeper you need to push it down, the more power you're going to need. And you know, the solar can only produce so much power, whereas this, because we're going to plug it into one of our batteries, because we don't have any other sources of power here. But if you do have a source of power and it's far away, you can obviously aerate your pond to up to 1,000 feet of distance. So
It says 60 liters a minute.
it's a lot.
That's a lot of air.
It's a lot of
I think
air.
it's actually going to pump more than the solar one.
And
I
if
guess.
you're talking about like a water fountain requires a lot of electricity,
Yes.
right? It's because you're moving water, which is heavier,
Yep.
and it's going to aerate the seam, but that's top-down aeration, which is not as effective as bottom-up aeration. So you want to put this at the deepest part of your pond as you can, because you're making contact with the water all the way up, right?
That's why you got the tiny little air stone to diffuse the little bubbles. You want tiny bubbles.
Tiny bubbles, which increases the surface area, which is exposed more of the water to oxygen. And these things are amazingly effective too. They make very, very, very tiny bubbles. It's like a pumice stone, right? And it comes out every section of there. So we'll put that in. We want to make a 24-hour aeration system.
So using the timer.
So yeah, we're going to use a timer because there's no sun in the middle of the night. Our wind power generates, it's not as effective as we had hoped because there's not that much air. It's not an open air environment. And so it's not getting consistent. It is blowing.
It's intermittent.
And it's intermittent, yeah. So we have so many fish in there. It's such a small area. We want to have air all of the time. So we got a plan?
Yep.
All right, let's go. Let's go right now and put it into practice. See if this works.
All right.
All right, let's do it. The cabin's just over here. We used to use this. It's the only sunny spot that we had that was close to the cabin. This was for the off-grid cabin until we developed a better way to power it with. Mostly we used portable power, but this was the generator shack. Originally, there's a shelter inside here, and we were able to put the gas-powered generator. That's how far we've come on the off-gridding experience. The idea here is to move this out front. So as you guys can see, there's a ton of uninterrupted blue sky and sun at the front here. But it didn't make sense to do this before. But with the Koenders system, we could run 1,000 feet of air hose. So your power source does not have to be anywhere near your pond. It will pump air. It's easy to pump air, put it that way. If it was a fountain, it would take a ton of power. It would have to be a lot closer. We got the timer here from Princess Auto. So we're gonna set it, you gotta set it for what, 10
a.m.
10 a.m. to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m.?
Yep. No,
That's fair.
something like that.
Well, whatever, we'll figure
We
it
can
out.
change that.
We'll figure it out. Like it's 10 at night, it's dark. 10 in the morning, the sun will be out. It'll be pumping. So that'll essentially give us 24 hours of run time. So again, that's from Princess Auto. It's a good sponsor to Kevin's channel and my channel. So I thought we'd give you a shout out there. So got our aerator here. So it should just fire up right away, right?
Just plug her in.
Just right away. Should I hold on to this?
I'll plug it in. Here.
Okay. Oh, that's nothing.
And if you once the hose is like there's a lot of air.
That is a ton of air. And it's got relief valves, so if you plugged it, it would still be okay. It's got like automatic relief valves someplace. So if you guys get the idea here, we're gonna unplug that for now. But that's gonna go in the housing unit, so you're not gonna hear it at all, I don't think.
No.
You might hear a little bit. All right, so we got the Koenders plugged into the timer, and then the timer is gonna get plugged into the EcoFlow. And then that's not going to run because we don't have a program to run yet. There's no way we're letting the fish die this year. So next step, 1,000 foot or less of air hose. You want to say something?
Yes. if you don't have an EcoFlow and you want to do this, you could do it with a deep cycle battery and a solar panel.
Sure.
Like a marine battery.
Like kind of jerry rig it.
Well, it's not even jerry rigging. It's like you can buy everything you want at the hardware store. You buy like a solar panel, like trickle charges the deep cycle battery, and then it just runs with an inverter.
And the alternative, of course, is actually just plug it into a regular wall outlet.
Yes.
Because most people would have access within 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet is a long distance to be able to pump air into a pond, right? Most people would have a house and they would want their pond or their whatever it is to be close to their house. So 1,000 feet is a long run. So we've got a couple of road crossings where the tractor is going to be driving over every once in a while. So we've got a little bit of conduits, electrical pipe conduit, just to protect it, you know, for driving over or if you're using the scoop or whatever. We don't want to be dislodging it and having it roll around. So we're just going to dig a little shallow trench just to make sure it's covered up.
Too much air is coming through that.
So just adding a little cup link here so that we can add another length of hose. You can get as much hose as you want, obviously, but you're just limited by the amount of push it can do. So that's 1,000 feet. I know I keep mentioning that because that's like the key ingredient. Otherwise, you're set to go.
It's ever quiet now.
Well, that's the whole idea. Get the noise away from your pond if that's what you want. Well, we're getting close. I think we're on like our third or fourth. We still got air coming through, and we got maybe 2 more sections, I think, to go. So we're going to be pushing the limits on this thing. We're almost there. We might get in the water. We might almost get in. Ready?
Yeah.
We don't got the stone on it, but I can't wait.
Throw it in.
Let's see what happens. Woo! That's crazy. That's a lot of air, right? Even without the diffuser. We need, I don't know, maybe we want to get out. Actually, we need like 5 more feet. So we need 1 more coupler.
It's always too short.
It's always too short. That's impressive. I'm impressed. I didn't think, honestly, by the time we got to the end, I'm like, it's getting less and less and less. I don't know. Well, the results, man, are right there. That's, I don't know how many feet. We'd have to pace it off again. You thought about 950 or something like that, right? 950 feet?
Yeah.
Let's get 10 more feet. We'll throw it out a little bit more from the shore. All right, now we got the stone attached. We can get the full bubble effect. Ooh. Fancy. Couple of rocks in the bottom, aerator on top, and then we'll just suspend that down in the water. A little bit of rope, and then we just got to attach it to the duck.
We got tangled up. Maybe it's spinning. If it's spinning, it'll be shrinking.
But it's definitely, like, they advertise it as being the same, and I would say it's for sure the same.
Yep.
Except, you know, if you plug that into your house or whatever, if you got an actual supply of power consistently, you can pump that much air all the time, whereas this obviously only works with the sun, but you got to go with what you have, right? So if you just have sun, hey, you're good. If you just have wind, you're good. And if you got, you know, all 3 like we've managed to figure out, then you're even better. You've got all your bases covered. So check out naturespondcare.com. You can pick out what product is best for you. That's the smallest one they make. So you can scale that up 4 times. So you can have something that'll aerate down 30 feet. Mr. Crackers number 1, the water's still cold. That's good. You see a little bit of algae forming. But before we started playing around here, it was clear enough that I could definitely bow fish trout. And that was the goal. That was my determining factor. If by the end of the season I can bow fish my trout out of here because I can still see them down 2 or 3 feet, then I was going to be happy. I feel like I should probably drop the underwater camera down there and see if I can see some fish. Do you guys want to see some fish underwater? You can see a little bit of scum forming up on top, but it's still a manageable level. So that's just from putting the feed in there
having the extra nitrogen in the water. But I think what we have in store will probably be able to fix that. It's not so much that a net couldn't just skim it off the top, and it's not definitely not choking anything out yet. I've never actually fed the fish while I've been in the pond, so one just surfaced right behind me. So this will be interesting. All right, let's get ourselves turned around and we'll chuck some feed in and see if they'll come and eat. They don't usually like to come up at the surface in the sun. That's what we've learned. So it's better to feed them during the morning or evening hours. Also, kind of throwing the feed in the sheltered spots helps too. But because I've been paddling around, I don't know if they'll come up readily. I've been paddling around for a little bit. Like I say, they might be spooked, but once you get them going, they'll usually keep going. I noticed when I was running the AquaView camera, it's 66 Fahrenheit. It's 66 Fahrenheit, but all the way through the whole water column, from the front all the way, or from the top all the way down to the bottom. So one of the concerns the guys had was, holy. Oh, you see that one get airborne? Oh, these guys are loving it. Look at that. That is hilarious. I think Kevin said he didn't quite feed them yesterday. Oh, holy. They're getting freaking airborne, man. They are a little bit spooked by the boat here. Oh, they're gonna come right up. Oh my gosh. It's hilarious. We'll get the rest of this feed out there. But what I was saying was, well, the aerator would mix. Would mix the water column up so much that it would move some of that cold water up to the top. It may be doing that. There's no doubt about it. We don't know. We can't know for sure. But I put the camera right down on the bottom. Holy smokes. And there's no noticeable difference. The camera is usually pretty sensitive here. Now, the only food they can get right now is near the kayak. So once they get a little bit of feed, they're not as aggressive. But man, that would be hilarious if one just came up right here. They are spooked by the boat. They do see the boat, which is good. We want them to have a good fear reflex. So we don't want them to be coming smashing in. Just if somebody's walking by, we want the fish to go down, because there could be any kind of predator that comes by. Oh, there they go. Whoa! That is so cool. So I got another toy from Cabela's Bass Pro Shops. It's in here. It's a little bit of a preemptive kind of addressing of issues. Last couple videos at the cabin, I don't know if you watched that whole series where I hang out here for a whole week trapping the beaver, but I put the trail camera out back and I actually saw the blue heron. He's back. Oh my gosh, look, you can see the fish right there. You can see down at least a few feet. You guys see that?
The big one right there.
Oh, there's Lois. I don't know, you guys might not be able to see with the GoPro. She's swimming by. There she is right there. I think she's been feeding, which is good news. Holy, she comes in real shallow. Jeepers. That is a big fish. You can see all of them there. I hope you guys can see them too. Great blue heron. That's from Bass Pro Shops. This is exactly what a blue heron looks like. And traditionally people would use these for duck hunting. And what you would do is you put them out and then the ducks would feel at ease, because herons are very territorial. They do not like people. They do not like other herons. So we're going to use that to our advantage. As long as we don't put this out during the mating season. There we go. And then simple as just sliding it over top. And then we've got Mr. Great Blue Heron. You guys can give him a name. Apparently last video I failed on talking about laying Lois. Oh, there's laying Lois. She's right over there. She's gonna swing by. I'm not allowed to say her name. It's a drinking game. You guys can do whatever you want with that. There she is. There is the big female. And then Clark Kent. Clark Spent too. I haven't seen him. Oh, that might be him. No, that's probably not him. There are bigger fish than that in here. You see they're kind of picking off anything down here in the shade. That is pretty sweet. So we got Blue Heron, Mr. Blue Heron, Clark Spent, and Laying Lois. I don't really care. I like saying their names. And somebody also said they were juvenile. I should come up with better names. Well, you guys can name those fish whatever you want. I can name my fish whatever I want. Always good to come over here and see if that beaver, or the other beaver, I did catch one. If the beaver that's left did any repairs over here, because the creek is running quite a bit lower now, but it doesn't appear like it's been doing anything. The water's running pretty low. And what I wanted to show you guys over here was the cattail fluff. It has been raining, so these are kind of on the down slope. But we can grab some of these and we'll bring them over to the pond. I got a bunch of them. Here we go. That should be more than enough. And if you've ever played with these, you know they are pretty light, pretty fluffy. They make for a good jacket or maybe a pillow if you're in survival, and it does make a good flash tinder as well. And I was thinking about doing this, but I thought probably it would happen on its own anyway. So it's obviously seated over here. Oh, look, there's a trout right there. So what we can do here is just, we can help it along a little bit. And this is seed all along the shore here. I don't know exactly how it works, but obviously it's been doing something, because maybe it lands in the water, I don't know. And we'll just leave these up here, and then whenever it becomes windy or whatever, it'll blow the rest of these out here on the shore. There we go, simple as that. If you want to put lily pads in there, we would have to dig up the lily root, and then we could sink that down on the bottom. Even just a little bit of the root would be enough to get it seeded. But we're not going to do that yet, because I don't know if I want to have lily pads choke up the pond. If they end up here on their own, that's what happens. All right, so we got some fish feed. I thought this would be the best way to keep it entertaining. You know, we're just gonna do some drama-rama. But this is from Lyndon Trout Hatchery. Floating feed, we got smaller stuff.
I was gonna say
It's smaller than it was before, so that it might take a little bit for the fish to clue into the size. But we'll address the drama-rama while we can watch the fish eat. If you skipped all the way to the end, well, they know what it is. If you skipped all the way to the end just to watch the drama, just know that I addressed some drama throughout the video. So you can go back and watch from the start. So I don't actually have a cell phone. This is a dummy phone.
yes.
So I preloaded everything because I only have Wi-Fi. It's my rule, I don't have a cell phone. I'm gonna see how long I can last. Speaking of which, first question is, or first comment. So often you don't get, like when someone wants to dig you, they don't ask a question, they just throw it right out there and make a statement. It'll last 2 weeks before the bin collapses. So if any of you guys don't know, we stuck a grain bin down in the middle, and it's apparently going to be very unsightly, even though you can't see it. And apparently lots of people think it's going to just collapse within 2 weeks. How many weeks has it been so far?
Got her in there in January. So
It's been about 6 months.
yeah, we're at 6 months.
And I dropped the camera down there, it looks fine.
Yeah.
So anyway,
We consulted. Like, we don't just like pull these out of our, you know, we've consulted many people.
and if it does collapse, whatever,
Yeah,
no big deal. I mean, we tried it. We'll see. It'll probably last 10 years.
at least.
That's my guess. By then, well, maybe we'll have better machinery and more knowledge of ponds, and we'll do it better.
Or we'll be dead.
And then some other comments I have, like people tried to guess how many rocks we put in there. So if you haven't watched the pond build, like we put a lot of rocks in. I don't know if we have any good guesses, so I'll just put some up there, because people put lots of good guesses. Somebody put 10.5 thousand rocks, so 10,500. And there's some other ones here. Somebody put 7,500 rocks, and then somebody put 16,000 rocks.
I would say like higher than 16,000 rocks.
I think so too.
Like,
But hey, kudos to you guys who actually took the effort and time to do some calculations on that. And then a question I just addressed. So not all of these are shade, but some of these are shade, right? Some of them asked about aquatic plants. You need aquatic plants, and I stopped reading the aquatic plants thing. We don't need aquatic plants because we have Koenders, Nature's Pond Care, Aeration. So it's not like we're going to get enough plants in there to produce enough oxygen for the fish.
Yeah, there's too many fish for it to sustain naturally, right?
Yeah. Like putting lily pads in there would be great for some shade, but I mean, there's shade there now. It's 3 o'clock.
They're tossing enough shade.
We got enough shade from some of you guys out there. So anyway, I did mention just before there's some cattails growing. So whether it's going to do anything, it's going to pull some of the nitrogen out, and we do have something which will address the nitrogen issues. Because as you put feed in there, the fish poop, adds nitrogen. That's why you're getting some of that pond scum forming now. But we could just pass a net over there and scoop it out. No big deal. I can't wait to see the final product. Are you guys going to add plants or install natural wetlands? So that's been addressed there. I'm confused about the benefit of the little nook you built on the outside of the bin. It seems that you've created a barrier, and now the small area under the logs will be highly oxygenated, but the large area water outside of the walls of the bin will be poorly oxygenated. Wouldn't it be better to have the large logs, to have the log span the bin and put the aerator down there? Do you plan on installing a second aerator inside the bin? See, those questions I like because it's a question, right? It's not a statement. So we've got 3 aerators, right?
Yeah.
We've got one underneath the structure, and we've got one inside the bin and one outside the bin. So I kind of set people, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I kind of set people up so that they kind of go through a trajectory of the storyline. So like it starts off really dire, that's the problem, and then we come up with solutions. So we're like 10 steps ahead on this pond.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were here when we started, but people don't realize that we've got these things kind of planned out. So, you know, they're like traps. I don't know if we're set traps and then people walk into them. So in other words, you should try to be very positive in the comments because you're probably walking into a trap and you probably have to eat your words by the end of it. That's how I kind of look at it. Like even when we first started, we put 2 fish in there, we knew it wasn't going to last, right? And then last year we put a bunch of fish in there. Like we kind of screwed up on that one, I'll admit it, because we waited too long and iced over. I planned 2 weeks before to grab the fish. It iced over, and then the sun was too low, so it produced no oxygen and the fish died. So I was 2 weeks too late.
Yes. Poor timing.
Timing. I just missed it, and we still saved like 5 or 6 fish, and the rest are going to turn into a maggot feeder. So keep watching. Here's one. Here's a question for you. My concern would be that what chemicals does the geotextile fabric break down to? So they're concerned about toxicity of the geotextile.
I don't know how to answer that. Other than like the geotextile is inert and it's designed to be buried in the ground. It's not gonna.
It's plastic.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know. I don't think if you put plastic in the pond, like as long as it's not microplastic, where the fish are eating it. And we have a good layer of rocks over top, and it's going to form a good layer of muck and silt and then slime, and it's just going to produce that barrier. So it's not like the fish are going to...
Well, are they concerned that the fish were going to eat?
Maybe they'll leach off or something.
Oh.
Did the fish look healthy? I mean, they look fine, right? The pond doctor, I was watching some guy doing the pond videos with Shaquille O'Neal. It's very popular right now. We should get a celebrity to do their pond. Anyway.
Shaquille O'Neal? We got Shaq out here?
Yeah, well, Shaq was doing his own pond, so the guy was filming it. But they laid geotextile, and then they use a plastic liner over top, so rubber membrane.
Yeah, rubber membrane.
Giant rubber membrane. So who knows? Maybe that's fine. Maybe it's not. I would say probably for application, like I'm not worried about it. And so here's one that probably you'll have to answer because nobody will believe me. George Rogers asks, do you do any work? That would be me.
Oh, okay.
And then John, I'm like putting the names up on the screens now so that you guys can read them. John Damon McKay writes, does the wooded beardsman ever do any actual work? So in filming this video, it's probably pretty basic today. Did I stand still since I got here?
No.
I ran around for like 6 hours.
Well, so what people don't realize is that if you see other people doing work, it's because you're actually filming them. Like I get shade on my channel for the only reason I'm showing work is I'm actually doing the work and filming.
Right. So if you film Don do the work, it looks like Don does the work, but Don doesn't film anybody do any work. So
Yes.
Don doesn't capture anybody doing work
I'd rather just do work.
and have somebody film you.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier.
It's a lot easier. You gotta stop what you're doing. You gotta walk like 15, 20 feet to the one side, film like 2 seconds, come back to doing your work, and just carry on. Like it's just constant. It's constant walking.
Yeah. My policy on my channel is I film other people do work on my channel because I want them to get credit for the work they do. I don't actually care if I get credit for the work that I do because I'm filming my video. And so that's kind of my payment. Although I will tell you, I probably made minimum wage making this pond.
Minimum wage.
Less than minimum
Yeah,
wage.
less.
Because I put 2 months of work in and the videos don't, like, they're not super popular videos. They get 30,000 views. It's like $300. So by the time I film and put a day's work in, like we did 2 months of rock moving. 2 months of rock moving. And I was laid up. Like I could do 1 or 2 days work in a row, and then I needed 2 days off to get back to doing it. So it was a ton of work.
I got a permanent trophy.
He's got tendonitis.
Something.
What was I saying? I was gonna say that yeah. So like the time lapses, that's when I'm doing the work because I can just put the camera on the tripod and I do it. So if you see me zipping by a which times and then you're like, oh, I didn't do any work. Well, did you watch the time lapse? Like that's 8 hours compressed into like a 30 seconds. So like I didn't do any work, but I filmed Don do work and Kevin do work because I could talk while they were doing work, and it's hard to talk while you're doing work because you're holding the camera. Anyway, yeah, it's a ton of work. So I mean, maybe you don't believe me. This is on Kevin's property. It's not my pond. So whatever I happen to do is for Kevin's pond. So how much work would you do for somebody else's pond? I've done a ton of work, but how much work would you do if it wasn't like actually your pond on your property? You might look at that a little bit differently if you were looking at it that way. I'm not sure people fully appreciate the scale of the job. I'm sure that the camera doesn't do it justice. Great job, bro. Should be a ton of fun come spring and summer. And here we are. So I thought I would highlight that there's some people that can actually, understand what's going on.
Well, at the end of the day, like, have you ever heard of crabs in a bucket?
Oh, of course.
Like
Right.
crabs in the bucket, right? So like there's a whole bunch of crabs in a bucket, and when one crab figures out how to crawl out of the bucket, the other crab's going and pulls them down, right? Like that's what the comments are.
Yeah, and I've always told like Kevin, like understanding, like we know how much work each other does, so we try not to buy into other people. Like even if we're not having a great day together or whatever, we don't throw shade or agree with the person who's throwing shade at the other person, because at the end of the day you just end up in a crab bucket mentality, and everybody drags each other down. So like if somebody's throwing shade at Kevin, I don't buy into it. Maybe you can add some sucker fish to help clean up the bottom. That's probably more a question for me. But you can't just put whatever fish you want in a pond. They have to be from a hatchery. You can't put wild fish in there. So I don't know if you could legally put sucker fish in there. Also, we don't want anything stirring up the bottom more than necessary. So we don't want like a bunch of useless fish in there. Minnows I don't know if I can put minnows in there or not. Or for crayfish, if I can put them in legally, I don't know. I try to ask them M&R if they're my own minnows and I want to use them for fishing. It's just a big storage tank. Maybe I can do that. I don't know. Have you thought about using a recirculation pump and build a small waterfall for the aeration purposes? You can handle that because I'll dig to the next one.
The upcoming is actually we have a recirculation pump that's going to create a water feature that's going to go up the hill as high as we can, and then we're going to actually trickle it back down. We've got some pea stone to filter it in, and we're going to have aquatic plants up there that's going to filter it. I also have artificial filter as well. I'm going to give it a whirl to see if I can clear up the water. Now, the water is like, I would say, I don't know, 10 times better. 10 times better than last year, at least.
Oh, yeah, at least.
Like,
Yeah.
now the fish can swim around. Like before, you fed the fish, they swam around, and you could not see a thing. Like they would stir so much up. Now, they don't seem to be stirring up anything. Like
I stirred quite a bit up just paddling around,
but again,
you can see the fish down 2 or 3 feet. Last year you couldn't see 6 inches.
yeah. So
You couldn't see them.
and what happened was the water table actually went really high. It went higher than we anticipated. So there is about a foot of shoreline that we actually have to add geo in order to further prevent that silting up. But the waterfall, going back to that, circling around to that thing, yes, there's going to be a water feature with a water circulation pump and a filter and aquatic plants and pea stone and all that sort of filter stuff. That'll be, I'm sure, on your channel at some point.
Yeah,
Maybe
at
I'll
some
touch
point.
on my channel a little bit because there's going to be some digging and some tearing. But yeah,
The idea then is like all the nitrogen we add to the pond will get taken up by the plants. And so that'll, instead of it getting, like we don't have a lot of algae, it's cold. The water's cold. There's 2 springs that come into the pond that keep the water table level high. So it's not like, there's probably a little bit of turnover there too, so the water's kind of flowing through on the bedrock. And so there's new water coming on all the time. And that's probably taking some of the nitrogen out. I don't know. But anyway, the water's cold. It's 60, I forget now, 63, 68, 63. And it's all the way through down to the bottom. Dan M writes, those fish are gonna die. And all right. And then the next one I said, well, they haven't died yet. And then he wrote, you guys are living the dream though. So he kind of balanced that out. They're living the dream, but the fish are...
and then I like, oh.
Oh, well, he thought later on after I replied, he was probably a little bit too mean.
Well, they're gonna die eventually. We're gonna eat them.
We're going to eat them. The question is whether we're going to get them in time before they die.
Okay.
But hey, laying Lois, and people got really mad because I kept saying that too many times.
I read that.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know how many times I say it.
It's because you have a mental problem. Why would they make fun of you for your mental problem?
That guy was really mean. Like clearly, even after I replied, I had a mental problem.
Dementia or something.
Yeah, I just like saying laying Lois.
Lois?
Loose Lois.
Loose Lois?
Laying Lois. I guess I kind of cleared that up, but laying Lois, loose Lois, Spen Clark. I don't know. I think it's funny. Whatever. And then BB Fisherman writes, "Why do you keep stocking this pond when the fish usually die each time?" Well, that's a question, so I can respect the question. Well, I don't think they're going to die this time. I think we put a lot of work into it, so maybe they won't die this time.
Well, really, we haven't. This is like the first actual attempt.
It is really.
Like you got to start off at a base level of what what can they tolerate, and then you learn from that and you adapt.
Right.
So overcome.
I think that's the whole point. Is like we try to set it up so it's like an impossible challenge. Oh, there's laying Lois right there.
Look at that! Yeah, holy moly!
Loose Lois. She's big. She likes to cruise around the shallows. I don't know. Maybe she's trying to pick some feed up.
Well, there's another one following her.
But I don't know. Do you think those fish look happy?
I don't know. They look pretty.
They look alright.
They look fine.
And there's a whole bunch of ones that in between that I stopped kind of addressing them. But like I think the questions that people had probably have been answered now. They kind of have an idea what the pond's going to look like. So it's a small scale pond, and there's a ton of fish in there. We should take a couple out to eat right now. Maybe the next episode I'll do that. I'll grab a shore lunch out of it.
I've got a project that I'm going to do on my channel.
With the fish?
Well, the pond. I don't like fish.
He doesn't like eating them.
I don't eat fish. I feed the fish, and yeah, there's a project that I'm going to do. Maybe they can weigh in on. I was going to make a dock.
Yeah, well, we need a dock because it's not that easy to get in there with the kayak the way it is on the rocks. But
Well, the dock. Well, you guys are gonna like moor the kayak at the dock.
yeah, like not all the time, but
That'd be kind of neat. So like
Every once in a
the
while.
idea is to do a couple of gabion baskets, kind of right. I'm sitting in your view, but there are a couple of gabion baskets filled with rock as a pier going out this back corner, and then going like a floating pier dock at the end of it.
I read all the comments the first couple of days, and then after that, kind of the trolls show up, because like the real fans watch the video as soon as it drops, which is probably the ones that are watching right now all the way to the end, which I appreciate immensely because it's really the only way to kind of make a go of it.
You know what I've been telling people is like even if you don't watch it, hit play and walk away.
Well, yeah, the people sometimes won't even put that effort into it.
I know, but like the least you can do is hit play and walk away. Like if you don't have time to watch the video, hit play, walk away, and then rewind it again when you actually do have time, and then watch it.
Somebody wrote on your channel that I didn't put enough effort into the editing.
Oh, I just read that. It was just recently.
I'm like, how much did you put a lot of effort into the watching? Like, who put more effort into this video? It's not a competition.
Chris has watched it 19 times. How many times have you watched it?
I do my best, guys. Like, I'm not perfect. So I try to make things as entertaining as possible. But
You're Steven Spielberg, don't you know?
no, I like to. There's only so much magic I can after the topic. If you're not interested in the topic, then, like, things are only so interesting. Like working on a pond is only so interesting. We just need more shack.
More shack.
Yeah, it's got like 200,000 views. It's like rejigging Shaq's pond.
Oh.
But I guess my channel is not really a pond channel, so it's supposed to be survival, and I'm not doing enough of that to please everybody.
Pigeonholed. Go survive somewhere.
Well, that's a lot of work, a lot of suffering. So try to keep it balanced. Some suffering and some, moderate suffering. It's still like the pond was a lot of work, man. Just to get to this point where we can enjoy it.
See, this is the.
Summer.
You always come here in the morning. Chris is an early riser. He comes here in the morning, and he's never, like he's usually gone by this time. This is the magical time of the day when this pond really kind of shines.
Yeah.
I'm in the sun right now. It's the sunset is where this pond's at. The sun sets over there, and it's beautiful here.
I try to avoid the black flies and mosquitoes. I messaged a company to see if they would give us something to try out, like a bug thing.
You gotta throw a lot of propane at that.
This was electric, and
Oh.
I don't know if it's overrated or if it
CO2
worked.
canister or
I
something.
feel like maybe the fish want one more. I just like to see them jump and stuff. It's just satisfying to have some wildlife in the pond.
Look at that. The fish like
They just keep.
just skim the top of it.
Well, you'll have to stick around to see if Lois survives. Clark is kind of pretty elusive. There's kind of a bunch of fish that are about the same size, so it's hard to tell. Like Lois definitely stands out, but she seems fine. We did lose 2 fish, which I think I would have showed in this video. I got to collect all the bits the last few weeks to kind of put it all together, but 2 fish is like nothing because obviously they just lost it in the transport. And some fish don't always adapt to the move and the change, but the rest of the fish are fine. We haven't lost only 2 fish.
It's less than 2%.
Right? And that would be like standard. You would lose like 4 or 5, I think, just moving them. And we only lost 2. One small one and one medium one that just kept swimming around for no reason, never found a home. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the update and stick around for the next one.